So just a really quick introduction. For me, I've been in education for about 30 years. I've been a teacher, a hoses, a DP, a principal, an internal reviewer, all those things. Any wonder I'm feeling tired, that you can see down the right-hand side there. At the moment, I'm QASEL president, which is a real interesting challenge. It's a privileged position. It's an elected position. There aren't very many elected positions in the department. I'm still employed by the department, so I'm a department employee governed by the same code of conduct and professional standards that all of you are. But my job is to run QASEL, which is an independent incorporated association. So QASEL is independent of the department. It's a stakeholder or a partner of the department, but I'm still an employee of the department. We have a memorandum of understanding that acknowledges that partnership with the department, and an interchange agreement, which allows me to work for QASEL while still work for the department while running QASEL. So that's all very exciting stuff. The reason I say it's a privileged role is I get direct access to just about anybody in the department, from the Minister to the Director General to the DDGs, and get that opportunity to discuss issues with them that are relevant to members. And I also get the privilege of talking to members and working with members right across the state. So just this morning, I was with Haley Stevenson, ADG, Disability, Inclusion and Support, and we were visiting a secondary special education program in South East region and talking about some of their work and some of their challenges. So a real privilege to be able to do those sort of things. So just, again, this is probably not riveting, but just so that you know, QASEL is an incorporated not-for-profit organisation. We're registered with the Australian Business Register, or the ATO, and the Office of Fair Trading. We're a professional association. As I say, we have an MOU with the department. I'm employed under an interchange agreement. And one of the things that people sometimes get confused about, I guess, is what's the difference between a professional association and a union. So QASEL is not an industrial body. We don't negotiate pay or working conditions for people. We provide input into policy and procedural changes for the department, and we consult it as stakeholders with the department, and we represent and support members, and we'll talk about some of the ways we do that in a minute. But QASEL, there's no big building anywhere. I say this to people all the time. There's no huge team of people. I'll talk about the team in a minute. But basically, you are QASEL. We are 500 members collective, or 500 plus members collectively across the state, all working to support students with disability in a leadership capacity or aspiring leadership capacity. And it's our collective efforts that are what QASEL really is. But we have some governance structures, and just so that you're aware of those, we have a constitution, obviously. We have an executive and a management committee, and it's like any other committee with a chair, which is me as president, a treasurer, a secretary, some vice presidents, a management committee of 10 people who represent roles right across the state. And that group meet 4 times a year just online to do the QASEL business stuff. That's where we make decisions about budget and motions that we need to move, changes to the constitution, you know, kind of the background stuff. And then we have state councillors, which represent all 7 regions. And 4 times a year, the state councillors and the management and executive come together face to face for a full day. And that's where we really get into the strategic stuff of identifying, you know, issues across the state, problems of practice, areas for advocacy and or support for professional learning. We also have a small business team that support our work. We have a professional development coordinator, which is Coach Carolyn, who's with us this afternoon. She works a day a week for QASEL, providing wonderful PD opportunities for people. We have an admin officer, Brandon, who works 3 days a week, and he mostly keeps me in line, gets the newsletter out once a fortnight with me, make sure members are all signed up, the database is accurate, pays our bills and that sort of stuff. And an executive services officer who helps with event management, helps me with my travel planning, and some other general kind of management stuff. And as I say, most importantly, 500 plus members across the state that make up QASEL. Now, if you're a member of QASEL, you are automatically also a member of ASEPA, which is our national association. The Australian Special Education Principals Association is the peak national body. And they do similar work to QASEL, but at a national level. So while I might meet with the State Minister for Education, the President of ASEPA, Matthew Johnson, might meet with the Federal Minister for Education to discuss issues, to advocate on behalf of members. So you don't have to pay any extra to be a member of a SEPA. QASEL will pay that on your behalf. It's included in your membership. And you'll see the SEPA logo at QASEL conference this year, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. So we work really closely with a range of other professional associations in Queensland, and lots of you will have heard of QAS, the Queensland Association of State School Principals. That's the primaries. The Queensland Secondary Principals Association, that's obviously self-explanatory. The business managers have an association. There's an association for combined sector leaders, so that's your P to 10, P to 12. They're called QASEL, which I always think sounds like something a duck would say, but anyway, they didn't win the acronym raffle. But even worse off in that space, I think, is the Queensland Association of Outdoor and Environmental Education Centre Leaders. Just too many vowels in there to do anything with, really. But we work really cooperatively with those other associations, and more often than not, our advocacy is aligned. More often than not, we're helping each other with our work. It's pretty rare that we have any sort of significant. We might see things slightly differently at times, but most of the time we're working side by side. And they all have presidents employed similarly, not exactly the same, similarly to me. So QASEL's vision, and you may have seen this hopefully in some of the QASEL publications already, we're a leadership organisation, but we're really, our focus nonetheless is on successful learners. So we think successful leaders is necessary for our students to succeed. So that's our vision: successful leaders, successful learners. Our commitment is to inspire leaders across the state to achieve the best possible learning outcomes for students with disabilities. Now, to try and bring that to life, we've got a strategic plan. Don't panic. I'm not going to read you through every one of those boxes. I just want to make you aware that it exists today. And it's broken down into those three subheadings you can see at the top there: leading, linking, and learning. And I'll come back to those three very shortly. But that kind of describes some of the actions and key strategies in there under those areas. I want to just tell you a little bit about the membership that you're a part of and the other 500 people that you're aligned to in this space. One of the myths that I hear from time to time is people say, "Oh, of course, well, that's the special school mob." And yes, we do certainly represent special schools. You can see there, hopefully clearly enough on that pie graph, that 41% of our members are working in special schools, but 50% of our members are working in primary and secondary settings. That 2% other is mostly a small number of regional office people and life members, past service members, etc. So yeah, a good percentage of our people work in special schools, but our work is in special education in the broadest sense, and leaders right across the state. And you can see on the other side that the other circle there just breaks down the membership very roughly by role. We've got a large slice of aspiring members, so they're people that are not yet in formal leadership positions, but that's their goal, their next step, and QASEL hopefully supporting them on that journey. Our heads of program are like our HOD Cs, our hoses, middle leaders at that level. We've got a good slice of deputy principals there, some principals, of course, as you'd expect, and some other, again, are sort of our life members mostly. The affiliates, it's very small, just a handful, just a couple of people who might meet that criteria because they're associated with another organisation or not necessarily working in state education. Our membership is growing rapidly. That's a real challenge for us as an organisation. When I talked about the QASEL business team before, Brandon and Rhonda and Carolyn, when I started, it was just me and Brandon one day a week, but that rapid membership growth has meant we've been able to grow that team and provide more supports to members. We have a QASEL member, 1 in every 5 schools are across the state, not special schools, not schools with special education, all schools. 1 in 5 of them has at least one QASEL member in it. I think TCLC has the most QASEL members. I'm going up to see them next week and I'll count them while I'm there. I think they've got like a dozen. So, but lots of schools with a QASEL representation. So coming back now to those 3 pillars, leading, linking and learning, I thought I might just talk a little bit about what each one looks like and then give us some practical tips, I guess, of how you can engage with that. This is one of my favourite ever cartoons about leadership. I think everybody wants change, but nobody wants to change. And people often ask me, what do I get out of being a QASEL member? What does QASEL do for me? And I'm fond of saying it's the wrong question. It's really about what you can do for QASEL and what you can do for the system and for students and for your colleagues through QASEL, it's an opportunity to contribute. It's an opportunity to have your voice. So as president of QASEL, I sit on about 50 different working groups, subcommittees, boards within the department and external to the department. We respond to policy and procedural changes all the time, and we write position briefs or position papers, which we push up to the department when we think there's an issue that requires some advocacy or some change from them. So that's some of the work that is being done in that leading space. In a practical sense for you as members and new members, what can I do to lead with QASEL? Well, I think the most important thing, and you're going to hear me say this more than once this afternoon, is you can attend your local regional meeting. So each of you will have a regional councillor right across the state. We have regional councillors. So there was a few of you in North Coast there before. Janet Firmstone and Nick Alexander and who's our third regional councillor in North Coast? Lyndall are our regional councillors there. And you can go on the QASEL website and see who all the regional councils are across the state. And those guys will call a meeting, usually once a term, usually online on Teams. And that's an invitation for you to come and talk at a local level about issues that are impacting on your work as leaders. And what they do is they take all that information and they bring it to the state council meeting. We hear from each of them, each 7 region. We go through in quite detail about what's happening in their regions. And then we do a bit of an analysis of all that data to see what the hot issues are, what the topics are, where the opportunities are. And that contributes to perhaps professional development response, perhaps a position paper, perhaps an advocacy, etc. So by coming to those regional meetings, that's really that on the ground impact stuff. You can contribute, of course, to some of the position briefs and submissions that we make. If you keep an eye on the newsletter, you'll see when those things are coming in and out. And if you read something and you've got a real passion for it or a strong view on something, then please do. I often write in the newsletter. Please email me if you've got some feedback about this, and I really love to hear from people. It's very helpful to me in my role. And you also have the opportunity, similarly, to respond to department policy and procedural changes. Again, if there's a particular area of interest for you, then happy for you to do that. And I try and spend time in schools visiting members as well. And members will sometimes just email me. And I suppose the thing I want to share with you there is the focus of my work is on system responses. So sometimes someone might contact me and say, oh, I missed out on, in my school, we missed out on 0.2 of an allocation for, in the RAR model. We think we missed out on 0.2 for some reason. And so, okay, so I can help you with some advice around that, maybe direct you to who you would talk to. But my role isn't necessarily to go and fix that for you in your school. I'll help you with that as a colleague, of course. I'll help give you some advice around that, but if I can. But what my job really then is to go, okay, is this a problem? Is it just an error in this school, or is this a system problem in this region or in this state? And then I work at that level to go back to the department and say, hey, look, I'm hearing from a lot of people, maybe in primary schools, that there's a bit of a pattern around this. Does that sort of make sense? So I think sometimes people ring me and expect me to fix their thing. I certainly do a lot of active listening to members and helping out and empathising where I can. And if I can offer advice that's practical, I'm of course happy to do it. But the focus of my job is, and QASEL's job is, that's those system-wide responses. So to that end, a couple of wins in the last recent times were around the RAR model. We advocated strongly that it couldn't be an immediate cutover from one model to the other. It needed a transition period, and we're able to lobby for $80 million worth of funding across that 3-year period to support schools to transition, which, when I talk to the number of people who are still funded or been maintained under the 2022 resourcing, that's a really, been a really important decision from the government, and we welcome that one. We've also been part of an infrastructure reference group that identified some renewal projects in special schools, and we were fortunate to see, nearly $109 million allocated in the last state budget toward that work. So we have some really significant wins at time. That's just a couple of examples. So that's the leading piece. Linking is around collaborating with each other and supporting each other's well-being. Again, I like this little cartoon. I don't know why, it just appeals to me. And there are a number of opportunities for QASEL members to link with each other and connect that we try and facilitate. So In a practical sense, again, I'm going to encourage you for the second time to attend your regional meetings. Great way to get to know the other members in your area, to build your network, and there's always strength in that sense of togetherness. A great thing to do in terms of knowing what's going on with QASEL is to read your annual report. Now, it should be arriving, like maybe even today. It could be in your mailbox or your pigeonhole. It's very, they were posted on a Monday, so they won't be far away. And that's just a publication we send out every year, which highlights QASEL's work and influence. Make sure you check out your fortnightly newsletter as well. It comes off pay week Tuesdays. Now, because you're a new member group, I might be a chance of doing this joke fresh with some of you. But Carolyn said it before. She already started laughing because such a big joke. So newsletter comes out every Tuesday off pay weeks. Now, I chose that day deliberately so that every Tuesday was a happy day for you. You either get paid or you get your QASEL newsletter. And I know some members who love their QASEL newsletter so much that they're disappointed when they wake up and it's payday. I don't know many, but I know some. It's also handy if you follow us on Facebook and Twitter. If you're a social media user, we put a lot of information and notices up there as well. So that's a way, a few ways of linking. From some of those things, what's emerged in the last couple of years. Last year we put out a guide to seeking help. It's on our website too if you're looking for it. It's just a reference point that sort of summarises all the different avenues for support and help in our department, because it can be a bit overwhelming if you're having a tough time just knowing where to go to, and that sort of has been a really practical resource for members. We've got a lot of active subcommittees. There's an ECDP subcommittee, a DP special inclusion subcommittee, there's a hoses subcommittee, and we are in next week's newsletter going to announce the formation of a new First Nations subcommittee looking to support our First Nations students with disabilities as well as our First Nations QASEL members and leaders. And also in the last newsletter, I'll probably mention it again this week, a special education leaders support and self-care program that we developed in collaboration with the department, about to be launched on QLearn. So a lot, and that came out of a wellbeing subcommittee that met for a short period of time to develop that piece of work. So lots of opportunities to actively engage and link with your colleagues through QASEL. And of course, we also learn together to build our individual and our collective capability. I'm a big Star Wars fan, so Yoda gets a run there. So some ways you can learn with QASEL. You can, of course, again, attend your regional network meetings. There we go. I think I got it in 3 times, Carolyn. And one of the reasons that I link that to learning is if you have an idea in your region about a local topic for professional learning, then your regional counsellor can submit for an application for QASEL funding to do something around that. And we've got some great programs running around the state. Up in Central Queensland, they've been doing some stuff around QCIA with QASEL funding. The DP network in Metro have been doing some stuff with the High Performing Schools program funded by QASEL. And Coach Carolyn also runs a range of great PD and facilitates a range of great PD opportunities, like the Coaching Conversations for Change program. And we're also, I haven't listed on there the Special Schools Data program, but also facilitating a new wellbeing learning program that's coming up soon. And I'll show where you can find links to that in a minute. And once a term, at least, I run a selection recruitment online kind of advice program. I wouldn't call it a training program, more of an advice program. So how do you find out and how do you stay current with all that information? So the short answer is the QASEL website. From the QASEL website, you can go to a link to the conference website, which will take you here, and you'll be able to see all of the information about our conference this year, keynotes. We have some more to announce soon, so that's a bit of a watch this space. There's information about accommodation for sponsors. The full program will be released here. That's just a placeholder for now. And of course, information about the different ticket types are there with just a short explanatory video that might help you out. So that's, I was a bit nervous about clicking the cross. So that's the conference website, but also if you go to the QASEL website, you'll see up here a link to professional development, and that's where you can stay up to date with things that are on offer. So this is very much mostly term 1's offerings up here now. So some of these have come and gone. Coaching Conversations in Townsville was, you know, a really well supported program. The application writing and interview advice PDs were well attended, and a couple of you I know were in that program. The Glen is, where are we? We're about, it's halfway. They're done day 1 and day 2 to come, as have the North Coast region. Now next year I think we're heading. Sorry, next time I think we're heading to Hervey Bay, and maybe a bit further north. We'll do the application writing and interview advice one again. I'm really excited about this Feel Good Lead Well program with Meg Durham. So check that out there. There's a link to register and for more information. So if you just keep an eye on that link in the website from time to time, but every time something new comes up, we of course promote that through the QASEL website. All right, so that's kind of a really quick run through all the information I wanted to share with you today. I'm going to pause for questions there, and my contact details are on the screen if you want to get in contact with me.